Hello and welcome back! In this video series on the quest for quality, so far we've looked at what it means for something to be enjoyable and how high we should set our standards for greatness. In this third video, I'd like to talk about my personal prerequisites for a piece of fiction being great. Note that this could be anything from, say, a film to an anime, but I guess I'm thinking about books more than anything else. So without further ado, let's go. 1. It needs to be enjoyable, or perhaps entertaining is a better word. I've already talked a bit about this, and hopefully I pray that this is the one attribute that we can all agree on, so I won't spend any more time on it. 2, it needs to have depth. That is, it needs to be possible to experience it, not just as entertainment, but also on some deeper level. Call it the moral, call it the message, call it the meaning of the book. There needs to be something to think about, something to read between the lines, if you will. Even if it's not explicitly pointed out, or even if it's a bit ambiguous, that's fine. It still needs to have some depth. 3, it needs to have structure, and this is the one I struggle the most to really define what I mean, but what I'm trying to say is that everything should come together as some harmonious whole, so that everything contributes to the larger picture that the book is forming. This is actually one of the main deficiencies I find with a lot of modern young adult literature, which is that everything just seems to be a string of events that happen consecutively, but sort of independently of each other. And some scenes just seem to be there because the author felt like throwing it in. That's not a good reason. If one or several chapters could be taken out of the book without having much of an effect on the narrative, then the book lacks structure. And finally, 4, it needs to be novel. What I mean by that is, if it's a rehash of something that's already been done to death dozens of times before, then it loses a lot of its value. I'm not saying it necessarily has to be something that has literally never been done before, but hopefully we can agree that something becomes slightly boring and uninteresting the more familiar it seems. Conversely, you could then also argue that something that may seem a bit bland or tired by today's standards could still be considered excellent because it was so groundbreaking at the time. Part of what makes fiction so beautiful and great is this ability and desire to push boundaries and explore the unknown. So that, in a nutshell, is my personal definition. It's the requirement that I consciously or subconsciously impose on a book when I read it, and I'd be curious to know if you agree with me. I'm not going to take every book I've reviewed on this channel and see how it fits into the system, but I'm going to list 4 just to illustrate my point here. 1, what was the first one? So The Great Gatsby, in my opinion, was not very entertaining or enjoyable. Great in other ways, but... Second, we've got The Hunt for Red October, was obviously not very... didn't have a lot of depth to it. Then we've got the one that sparked this whole discussion, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, lacked structure, and finally The Book Thief was not very novel. So yes, as I said, that is my definition. It's a very preliminary definition, so there might be lots of amendments you could make to it, and I'd love to know what you think, but I thought about it myself, and most of the other attributes I could think of mostly derived from these 4 that I've already listed. So that's it. That's my definition. Thank you for watching. This has been The Missing End. I'm turning off my camera.